I'm Kristen Wooten, and this is my speech about lacrosse. I played lacrosse in high school, so I thought it'd be kind of cool to inform. So it's called Life with Lacrosse by me. Alright, so when I first went into high school, I kind of felt left out amongst everybody else because they were all in clubs and sports, and I wanted to be in something, but I didn't know what, and I didn't really have any, that many hobbies at the time. And I remember one day my friend Kylie was like, hey, will you come to this girls lacrosse meeting with me after school? And I was like, sure, why not? I didn't think anything of it. And I went with her, as moral support. And then, a couple weeks later, we were on the team. And it was really cool because it was our first year they were doing it at my school. So you didn't have to have any experience. You didn't have to try out anything. So it was just kind of like, they're just kind of trying it out. And I also believe it was Nebraska's first girls lacrosse high school team, which is really cool. So it was a really cool experience. And, soon it became like one of my favorite pastimes. I spent so much time, practices, games, traveling, playing wall ball, exercising, I spent so much time because I literally, when I first played lacrosse, I didn't even have a job. So it was just like a lot, at once, but I loved it. And it was really fun to hang out with my friends. And, a really great time. So at the end of my speech, we'll learn a little bit about lacrosse through the history of it, the background, the equipment, the field, how it's set up, the players, some of the basic rules of the game, as well as the impact it has on a lacrosse player. So, going to the history of lacrosse, it goes back to as early as 1100 AD, the Native Americans. And originally it was called stickball. That's what it originally was called. It was called stickball before lacrosse. And when the Native Americans would play it, they would play it in a large field. It could go from like a few hundred yards to a few miles. It was just a large field. And they would play with like hundreds of guys, even to like thousands of people at one time. So it was just like a really huge game, like everybody would play it. And, it was a good game for the young warriors to get stronger and help strengthen them. But also they would play it for religious reasons and just for fun. It was just something for them to do. And originally the lacrosse balls were wooden, but then they realized those were too rough. So then they became deer skin that was stuffed. And then the netting of their sticks was made out of deer tissue. So yeah. Alright, going over the equipment, I'm going to briefly go over the guys versus the girls because it's very different. The guys' lacrosse games, it's a lot rougher and more physical than the girls, so they have more equipment. They have a helmet, shoulder pads, elbow pads, gloves, mouth guard, knee pads, and cleats. And the girls, we don't even get a helmet. They would just get a headpiece, mouth guard, and cleats. And then for our uniform, typically you would see either t-shirts or tank tops. And then you would see shorts or a skirt, which is just a skirt with some like spandex shorts underneath. When I played in high school, we had a tank top and skirts. Honestly, wasn't a huge fan of the skirts, but, it was the vibe of the uniform, so, And then for the balls, they're made of rubber. I don't have one with me, otherwise I would show one. You can find them in any color, but typically in games, they're going to be yellow or white, because they're easiest to see on the field. And I think recently they also allowed orange to be played in games. But yeah. So going on to how the field's kind of set up and a little bit more about the players and how the game looks. I'm talking about high school, by the way, so this shows 12 total players, but in high school we had 10. You have your goalie, you have your 3 midi, 3 defense, and 3 attack, which is your offense. And lacrosse is kind of like a mix between soccer and hockey, if that helps. So the field is set up very similar, pretty much almost identical to a soccer field, because we would play and practice on soccer fields all the time. It's just the lines are a little different, but it's very similar if you think about it like that. So, of course, with your goalie, you'd have your 3 defense. I was defense. So, your 3 defense, and then in the middle, you have your 3 midi. And then on the opponent's goalie side, you have your 3 attack. And attack is obviously your offense, defense. Midi is attack and defense. They have a hard job because they're constantly going up and down the field. They're wherever the ball is. So, yeah. So, the basic rules. And for high school, the games would be 60 minutes. So, you'd have 2 25-minute halves with a 10-minute halftime. And yeah, let's see actually, and this is a picture of like an actual field, but yeah. So the objective of the game is pretty simple, I guess. It's just you have to run down the field, cradle, catch, and pass with your lacrosse stick and have the ball, and try and shoot a goal into the opponent's goalie. So. Very similar, like I said, to like soccer and hockey, if you think about it like that. I brought my lacrosse stick just to kind of demonstrate some of the terms so that makes more sense. So the term cradling, with the girls, we don't have a big pocket, so you can't just run with a straight stick, otherwise you can't run like this, it's going to fall out. So you have to cradle. That's pretty much this motion. It's just kind of like you just kind of go back and forth like this. It keeps the ball steady, moving, and it makes it harder for girls to try and check the stick, which is another term, check. The left hand, cradling. So when you have the ball and you're running on the field, it's like this. Checking is when you want to get the ball out of another girl's stick. There's legal ways to do it, and there's illegal ways to do it. Typically, the most legal way to do it is you kind of karate chop the corner, and it flips their stick, and the ball falls out. Illegal ways, you can't hit the stick like that. You can't hit the base right here. You can't hit their hand. You also can't cover it. That's like those are gonna get you penalties. That's called checking. Catching and passing, kind of where you can't catch like a straight stick. You kind of have to give with it, so the ball typically will hit the back of the net. So you have to give with it, you know. Catch down here. Passing, kind of the same vibe. Just flick it out. You can pop it up. There's different ways to do it, but you obviously have to get used to using lacrosse stick for it to work a little, I guess. Alright. And quickly go over penalties, but it's kind of complicated. Very minor penalties will get you, like say, there's a term called crashing. And as a defender, this is something I would have to do when it looks like somebody's going to shoot on your goalie. You have to put your stick out towards the goal and run towards it and yell crash. You can't put your body first, it has to be your stick. If you put your body first, that's going to be the penalty, and it's going to be a shooting space, which will then, everybody will kind of, almost like a free throw if you think about it in basketball, they'll have to line up on the 8-meter line, and she gets a chance to shoot, and everybody kind of goes like this and yells crash. It's like a free throw kind of vibe. But yeah. So something like that will be a minor penalty if you're in the shooting space and you don't have your stick out. She'll just have to go behind her and she gets a free shot. You have yellow cards and red cards. So if you get one yellow card, you're out for the game for 2 minutes, and your side is one man down. And you have to sit out for 2 minutes. There's a timer and everything. And you can't get replaced. You have to sit out for 2 minutes. If you get 2 yellow cards, you are out for the game. And then red card, I've only saw it like one time, if I'm correct. Red cards are a little more harsh. If you get a red card, you're also out for the game. One time, I think the one time I saw it, this girl got checked in the back of the head, and she had a really bad concussion, and she was just out on the ground. So, they're actually one of my players, and she had to be out for the rest of the game. She looked horrible, but yeah, it's kind of nuts. These pictures, it's hard to see through the screen with the TV. She's playing defense on her. You know, she's cradling, look at her go. This is called a draw. It's another term. This is kind of who decides who gets to be offense. So middies do it. I've done this in practice before, but like I played defense, so I never got to do this as a middie. But they start out like this. Both girls like this. You know, the other girl has her stick like this. So the ball goes in between the back of the netting of the stick, and then when the ref blows the whistle, they flip it out, or whoever pushes it, and then the ball typically goes up in the air, and whoever catches it first gets to be offense. So that's called a draw. And then this picture is just a girl getting a ground ball. Simple as that. You have to get the ball off the ground. There's a certain way to do it. I was really bad at ground balls, but they're kind of hard. But yeah, just some of the basic terms and rules of the game. Alright, and then lastly, the overall impact of it. So, first thing like I was kind of saying earlier, came with a lot of responsibility, because when I first played lacrosse, I was only 15, I didn't even have a job yet, so just to go from school to like spending so much more time doing this was a lot. Like practices, traveling for games, you know, playing wall ball, I'd have to work out, I'd have to go on runs, it was just a lot, but it was good. Like it taught me a lot. I was like a little 15-year-old, you know, it was really, you know, it was good. And also, basically teamwork, but with teamwork comes communication. And as a defender, I would have to yell pretty much the entire game, whenever the ball was on our side at least. Like I was saying, when I've got the yell crash, you're screaming. I have to constantly say where the ball is. I'd be like, ball top left, top right, ball bottom right, ball top. Just constantly yelling every time the ball gets passed, where it's at, so my other defenders and goalie, you know, we got a head on our shoulders, we can see where the ball is the entire time. And also, there's another term I can throw in real quick, it's called a pick. It's basically when, like as a defender, you're on an attack, another attack from the opponent's team will come up to you like this or something, and then the girl that you're on will kind of back off, and she'll get an open shot. It's kind of like a fake you out kind of moment. That's called a pick, but those are kind of hard. There's different ways to do picks. But something like that, when that happens, I have to yell at my other defender, pick, well, I don't remember the correct term for it, but, it's just a lot of communication and yelling. And when I first did it, I wasn't that comfortable with it because I was like a very, introverted, shy person. And then I just had to start screaming. And soon I got really confident, and it was really nice because I was able to like yell at my teammates, and I didn't hate it. And it boosted my confidence, and I was able to like be more funny and joke with my teammates. So it was really nice, and I really appreciated it. So, as you can see, you learned a little bit about lacrosse, the history of it, the equipment, the field, the players, some basic rules of the game, and also just the impact it has on a player. So, it was a really good time, and I would recommend it for anybody. If there's any little kids out there that want to play a new sport, play lacrosse, keep it growing, because it's mainly on the West Coast and the East Coast, and like barely in the Midwest, but you want to keep it growing, because it's a really fun sport, and it's really cool. So, yeah.